Hi, it's Jenny with the League-Kempner House. We are back for the very last video of the year. I can't believe we have not missed a single Sunday, and what better way to wrap up the year than the final placement of these giant eyebrow arches that we took down to do that roofing work. So in the previous video you saw them placing the small eyebrow on the front peak and the one on the side. What I didn't film is the one that's on the very back, but this is the final one they're placing on the front. It was quite the balancing act to get it up on the lift and get it driven around and then lifted up into place. Once they got up there, the guys struggled for a while. They had to harness up and figure out how they were going to actually exit the basket and get this thing placed. And unlike the one they did on the side, where if they fall or slip, they just come back down to that flat area of the roof. If they slide up here, they come off the roof, and it's a very far drop. So they are harnessing up and figuring out how to tie off and how to maneuver those harness lines around this giant arch. So it's a little more difficult than it looks. So once they got up here, they were there for quite a while they figured out the best way to do that. I didn't want to miss the last one going up, so Kelly and I stood out in the Esplanade for a long time and just watched.
Oh, I found your new job.
I'll do anything. I'll scrub toilets. Not bad.
After a lot of maneuvering and checking of the lines, it was finally time to pick this thing up and get it placed on the roof. It was such a great feeling of relief to have that done, but a lot of anxiety watching them do it. This is a dangerous place to work. And even with the lift, it's still a very difficult and challenging operation. And it's hard to see, but if you look closely at the small arch on the peaked portion, you can see it's just tacked into place. They haven't actually installed any of these. Once they're up, they'll go trace the outline with the Sharpie, move them out of the way, cut the shingles back, put down that ice and water shield, and actually get them installed. But they first wanted to have everything placed and in the proper position before they started that process, because if we lose the boom, they can do that anyway. Even just temporarily installed, the roof looks so much better with these metal decorative elements back in place. Since they were already tethered in this spot, the guys started working on the permanent installation of this one arch. They were actually quite excited to get to this point. The day came to a close, and Kelly and I decided to take a walk on the beach. It was just a gorgeous day, but the whole beach was covered with these incredible little mounds. They are the burrow entrance of the male ghost crab, and normally they are little balls of sand piled up in a pyramid. But because the tide was coming in and the water table was high, water was rushing through their burrows and making these beautiful little patterns as the water rushed out. So each one was its own independent work of art. Of course, this sent me down the rabbit hole of studying ghost crabs, and they actually burrow up to 4 feet down, and there are some scientific papers out there about the strength and structure of their tunnels, so I read those. But anyway, they're fascinating little creatures. They're the fastest invertebrate on the planet. But for today, we just admired the beautiful little burrows that they made. Starting off the day with a very lucky find. I think that's a dime. We spent the night down at the Lucas because the next day was Sunday and the roofers were taking a break, so we would have the opportunity to use the lift all day on Sunday, and we wanted to start early. It was pretty trashed out, the basket from the roofer, so we first had to clean everything out and get all of the things we needed organized to do the painting. Okay, Kelly asked if I was going to tell on myself, and I am. We just spent 30 minutes looking for the primer. It was in the very last place we looked, and Kelly has spent almost 3 days organizing everything, but it was in the one room she hasn't gotten to yet. So let me show you what I'm going up there with and why. First, we have the Sherwin-Williams primer, just wood exterior oil-based primer. Then we have, to go over that, the top of the line Sherwin-Williams. It's called Rain Finish something. Apparently when it rains the dirt comes off of it, with the mildewcide in it, and it matches the color we used in the front. The front we were using a Benjamin Moore product, but we've switched to Sherwin-Williams. And then Kelly had bought us this before. This is a specialty primer for a galvanized metal, and I'll walk around and show you what I'm going to work on in a second. But this was very expensive. What was this, like $150 or something? And we used about this much of it, but we still have a few things up there to do. And this is a specialty acrylic coating that goes on top of that, which we did not have when we painted the galvanized arch on the side, but we have it now, and we're going to use it to paint the little bit of galvanized metal that we have left. So that's what we're going up there with. So let me grab the camera and show you where I'm headed first. And I would note that it's hot tonight, and Kelly is cutting her pants off because she didn't bring shorts. And I have rolled my pants up in a very attractive manner, so it's all about comfort. We really don't care what we look like here. It just doesn't matter in Galveston. People accept you for what you are. I can't even see it from this angle. So anyway, over in this U-shaped area, I did all the fascia here and across there, but what I could not reach was the fascia across the side of the addition. So I'm going up there to do that. I'll double check these windows while I'm there. This one in the corner over here is in very bad shape. I might just wire brush it and put a coat of primer on it just to protect it a little bit till we can get up there and do a better job. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that because I have more urgent things to work on. And then I have to go way over here. Somewhere I can see it. Through the trees up there. I don't know if you can see. There's a little triangular gable that sticks out from the stair landing on the third floor, and that's not wood around it. The trim you see up there is galvanized metal, and it's pretty rusty on top. So I'm going to sand the top and get that primer on it. I don't know how much time I'll spend working on the front of it. It's not in bad shape. I may just slap a coat of paint on that and call it done for right now. We can do a better job later because then I want to move on to the front. So on the front, I started on these 3 sets of kind of bays or gabled, I don't know what you call them, on the front. And I did a little bit at the bottom and on the left and the right. What I didn't finish was the center across the top. And I could not reach the sides on any of them. And that I definitely want to finish today because we have to have this extra tall lift to do that. Part of the reason I didn't do it is I could not reach it with that 60-foot lift. It was just barely out of reach. So with that, I'm going to load up my paint. I can keep it straight and use the right one when I'm up there. I'm going to harness up. Kelly's going to get a lawn chair and be my safety patrol. And I'm going to try to get started. It took a lot longer than I thought to get harnessed back up. I had actually loaned my harness to one of the roofers previously who was much larger than me, so all of the straps had been loosened, and it doesn't do you any good to wear one of these harnesses if it doesn't fit properly, because you can fall out of your harness if it's not tight. And I already have a problem because I'm a little bit smaller than these harnesses are designed for. I probably need a child size climbing harness. So I have to spend a lot of time and get these as tight as I can and make sure I have the proper fit. Hi, Kelly. Okay, it took me a very long time to maneuver up here, and it shouldn't have. Now I know why the roofer was going so slow. The side-to-side motion on this boom is very jerky, and it swings you 2 and 3 feet. There's no way to just scooch up next to something, so you have to be very careful that you don't slam into the house. So I did manage to get in a position where I can do this whole length of fascia here. You see how bad it is. There's some issues with these boxes being loose. I did bring up my little galvanized brads to try to tack some of that together. It's going to be a challenge getting up there, but I think I can do it from this same position, so I'm going to give it a shot. But I'm going to put the phone down right now and get scraping on this because we don't have any time to dawdle around today. As hard as this thing is to maneuver, it may be pretty much a challenge to get done what I wanted to get done today. So we'll see. Kelly to the rescue. I dropped an important piece of wood that fell off my little box and my gloves. So she's going to try to throw it up here. We found a way. I had a strap up here. She's going to put the wood in the glove, tie the glove to the strap, and I can haul it up. Success. All right, I've reached a decision point. I have to decide what to do. It was so hard getting this basket here. I've scraped this, sanded it, hit the nail heads with a rust primer, filled nail holes, and I need all that to skim over before I prime. And then once I prime, I have to let that dry before I paint. And the problem is, if I move and work on something else while that's being done, how long will it take me to get back here? So I'm eyeballing that little triangular window. I'm just not sure about it. I guess I got it in here once, I can get it in here again. Maybe I'll wait, let the skim prime it, then go up and work on that window, and then bring myself back down. So I just don't want to waste any more time than necessary because there's so much to do and so little time with this boom. But, while I'm here, you can get a bird's eye view of our eyebrow arch in place. And you can only see this one from the ground if you go way to the back of the yard and look up. I think I'll prime and then go work on that guy. But I just remembered a couple more things I need up here if I'm going to do that. I need a plastic bag to put my brushes in, and I didn't bring it, so I'm going to get Kelly to go get it and come do our window trick again. Kelly, I came up with 4 more things I needed, so Kelly wants me to text it to her before she goes in the basement, collects everything, and climbs all the way up here and is missing something. This time she has a whole shopping bag full of stuff. All right, now that we have the method. So here we are up close and personal with the window, and this was one of the things that was originally on the bid, and I think it was about $2,000 to scrape and paint these. So this is one of those things we elected to take off the bid to lower the price, and now it's good because I can actually get this work done. So again, it was a nightmare getting up here. But look at that view. But I'm just going to basically sand this real quick, clean it up, slap some primer on it. It was never painted. It was just the bare galvanized metal, and then I'll see what I can do with the front. All right, that window looks so much better. Sorry, my hands are shaking. Joe says I'm a I'm tired, I can't talk. Joe says I'm a terrible videographer. But anyway, I got the really loose stuff scraped off, sanded a bit, and that very special primer on it, and 2 coats of the special acrylic paint for the oh my gosh, for galvanized metal. I think it may be time for a cookie break and a water break. But anyway, I'm up here watching paint dry. So I put my first coat of the, okay, this is bad. I put my first coat of the Sherwin-Williams Emerald exterior paint on here. I need it to dry and get pretty tacky. I put it on thick. I want a second coat on here before I get down. So while I'm watching that dry, or waiting for that to dry, I'll show you the box construction here. So these little boxes are where the roof rafters come out, and so they're just a decorative cover. You can see in here, see how the rafter comes down. They built the box around it, and they're very well made, like everything else in the house. The corners are mitered, everything's cut very precise, but they are getting damaged. The wood's shrinking, the nails are not holding. These nails weren't very deep to begin with, and I just don't have the material I need to cut a replacement and patch that. So unfortunately it will have to stay. And you can see I did not paint under the eaves or the soffits. We're just doing the fascia because it shows this is much more protected in here and not as visible. We'll get that done another day. Right now we're just getting the things we see and the things that need protection from the weather. Okay, let me show you what's going on up here. I haven't filmed much because I've been in such a hurry to get this done, but this is a piece of flashing. So I used that special galvanized metal primer and then the acrylic coating to go on that, and painted over all the places where they had tarred it in place because I think it looks bad from the ground. I'm about to swing around and do it on our new eyebrow arch over there because I think it looks tacky from the ground. But I've gotten everything primed, painted, refoed my window. I tried to get up under there as best I could, but I couldn't quite reach that corner, and you can see that one metal decorative element is just completely rusted out. I didn't quite get under the eaves over here, but I did get the sides done. It was just too hard to reach. And I'm going to swing over and see if I can reach the upper part of this next. But I've only got about 6 feet to move forward. I think that might be enough to do it. But I'm going to take it down and take a quick break after I go work on that eyebrow arch. So it's looking better, Kelly says, from the ground. So that is the goal. And also, as we said, to preserve the wood. This may not be the greatest paint job. I'm doing the best I can. I'm scraping, sanding, nail hole filling, but I'm not recalking everything. So at some point we'll have to come up and really do this better. But anything is better than just raw wood being exposed to the elements. So this is why I wanted to come over and work on this eyebrow arch. Everywhere they put a nail to hold it in, they covered it with roofing tar, which is black, and it shows from the ground. It looks really ugly and messy. Now, fortunately, what you can't see is that brown piece of flashing that I used to reinforce this. From the ground, it's not visible at all. I also took the opportunity to kind of inspect their work, and they didn't finish putting the shingles on this side. You can see the big gaps and the fin showing. So I'm going to take some pictures of that and get with the roofing company and have them come back and fix that. But the rest of the painting looks really good finished. It looks so much better from the ground. It's one of those things when you look at the house, it's not necessarily noticeable, but once it's been done, the house just looks better. So we wrapped up another day. It's been a long week here, but the scenery is just gorgeous. The skyline, the sunset from up high over Galveston is beautiful. So it's been worth it to use this boom. I needed to be home working on my house for Thanksgiving But fortunately, my husband's a good sport, and he took care of all that for me. Okay, I'm back up on the boom. I don't quite have my sea legs today, I don't know why, but I'm working on another one of those triangle windows. And I wish I had my rivets up here, because that's problematic. Well, it probably won't hurt anything, but it could catch wind in a hurricane. It's probably what happened to it. But it's another fabulous day. There's a great shot of the top of the Trube Castle. Its roof is very sad. And a great shot of the roof work going on at the Bishop's Palace. You can see the blue peaked cone in the back. So it was great. I got 2 full days of painting in with the lift before the metal guys showed up to install the gutters. And on the ground, these gutters are huge. They put the end caps on. Everything is soldered together so it'll be watertight. It's held together with these straps to keep it from deflecting from the weight of the water. And then, being a woman, I had to decide where the downspout should go. So I had these guys putting it here, putting it there, stepping back and looking at it. It's actually quite a tight fit in the corner. That would have been my preference right there, but it actually overlaps the door and the window, so we moved it to the other side where there's a little bit more space. It can't go back in that far nook where the original gutter went, because we need to leave room for the water line to come in for the fire suppression equipment. So we had to choose between putting it way out here on the corner or kind of centering it on that wall. In the end, we elected to center it because there's a problem when you get up top as to where actually the spout needs to exit the gutter. Before they started on that, they went up to put the roof caps on. There's another long story about that. But then it was back down to work on the gutter. And they have the same rivet tool that I have, except they use copper rivets. So everything is done in copper because it won't rust, it won't deteriorate the way steel will. It's a pretty long-lived metal. But they follow the same process. Just drill, put the rivet in, use the tool to expand and crimp. So they were actually putting the side piece on there. They'll come back and solder along the seam to make it watertight. And then it was time to take it up and try to fit it in the space. Now everything was measured, but things are not straight. So this actually turned out to be a problem. It was just a tiny bit too long to fit, and they were having the same problem with the lift that I did. It's swinging wildly from side to side. It's very hard to adjust, so they're actually bracing themselves to keep it from slamming into the building as they try to get into position to work. And they're going to have to do this over and over and over again to get this in place and get the downspout attached. So they got pretty good at it by the time they were done. And it was hard from the vantage point I had to show you what's going on, but basically as they lift it into place, it's just a little bit too long, and they've already got those end caps on there, so it would be difficult to remove the end cap completely and put it back on without damaging the end of the gutter. So there was a lot of tiny bits of trimming and finagling to get this thing in place, and we do want it in there tight because we don't want water seeping around the edge. We want everything to run off and go in the gutter, but they eventually got it in place and to their liking and were able to secure it. Now it's hard to see in this photo, but there is quite a bit of slope from right to left, with the left side being the low end, and that's the end where the hole will be cut to attach the downspout, because we need water to flow over to that downspout to exit and not pool in the gutter itself. It's hard to see, but they're up there taking measurements as to how far the downspout is from the wall. And the downspout can't come straight down. I'm going to draw kind of a crude picture of what's going to have to happen. So here we go back to construction paper. This is a profile of the wall. So it's got these brick areas that protrude out, and the gutter's up top, and the pipe has to come down, hug the wall, bend, go around that first decorative element, hug the wall again, bend, go around the next decorative element, and so on down the wall. Now, the pipe is actually that giant rectangular copper tube, so it has to bend, and to do that there has to be all these joints, so there's multiple bends for each time it goes around something. So what you're going to watch is them actually cutting and making these bends in that giant copper downspout. So first he measures how far down, then he makes a series of parallel lines with some pretty precise measurements, and he transfers that all the way around to the sides of the spout. So he's done this hundreds if not thousands of times. He's very fast at it. I've accelerated the video just a little bit, but once all the markings are made, then he takes his tin snips and makes the cuts. Now to get it started, he has to first drill a hole to be able to get the tin snip in there. So he makes that first hole, and I was impressed. So if you saw me before working on those metal eyebrow arches, remember the curl that the tin snip makes when you cut? He actually has two, a right curl and a left curl. So depending on the side he's cutting from, he can change and easily make that cut. So here you see the green handle before he's using the red handle to cut down the other side. So they're color coded for him to know which one to use. So after he makes all his cuts and gets the edges cleaned up, they will make this first bend. Now if you notice here, he's not cutting precisely on the line he drew, and I actually tried to make a little mock-up of this to show you what's happening a little more precisely. But let's finish watching him make his bend, and then I'll try to demonstrate with the model. So he's got everything cut the way he wants it. You can see it's now just hanging on. He let it fall back to put a crease in it, and I thought this was fascinating. He has a metallic holder for all of the different drill bits and things he might use, but they basically use that crease to come back up, fold, and make that bend. Then using rivets, they just secure this. Now when I show you the model, I'll try to demonstrate some of the finer points that go in to making this functional, because remember, it's going to carry water and you don't want the downspout leaking, and here you've got it cut through on three sides. And I did try to get a shot going into the inside where you could see the rivet in action. I don't know how clear it is because the copper is so shiny, but here you can see where he drilled the hole, the rivet next, and then the tightening of the rivet, which deforms it, shortens it, and makes it fatter and makes it hold. How long did it take you to learn how to do all this?
Oh,
Long time.
I don't know. I've been working this 10 years. Yeah, started when I was 15.
15.
Yeah.
So you're still a baby.
24. Is that like 10 years old? Yeah. Nine.
Pretty cool. Okay, I don't have Joe to film, so let me see if I can keep this in frame. So I have made my own gutter, and I've marked on here the 3 lines that he did, the center line and the outside lines, and then he had like a little separate line for him to visually see where to cut the tab I'm going to show you, and then the notches. So what we're going to cut out in theory are these notches all the way around, and then the notch on the other side. But he doesn't exactly follow this one, so let me show you. Let me see if I can get it. I got a little easier time to get it started than he did. Yikes, okay. A little hard to do. Well, I say it's easier for me to get it started. Let me get a hole in it. Okay. So I'm going to cut over to this line. I'm having a hard time keeping it in frame so you can see what I'm cutting. Let me move around. I'm going to cut down this line. I'm going to do back the other way and down the line. Okay. This is very hard for my brain to keep this in line. So that's kind of one side. So you see you could fold it, but I need to cut the other line. Now what he did on there is instead of cutting right on the line, he left a little bit. And then he left a little bit. And then he did the same thing. Whoops. Okay, this is not my finest hour on demoing. And then he left a little bit on that side. So basically what he ended up with were some tabs. And the reason he wanted those tabs is when he folded it in, those tabs are going to go inside. So I'm going to try something different. I'm going to color the tab so you can actually see what's happening. And the tab is that extra that I left above the line. So what happens is the tab slips inside. And there is a directionality to this, because if water flowed in from the top now, it could come out that crack. But remember how we overlap shingles? So there's actually an up and a down. So this is actually the correct down flow of the water, so that the tab is inside, so it keeps the water in the tube. And then they put the rivets. Okay, this seemed like a much better idea in my mind, so that the rivets go here into that tab and hold it together, and the water flows directionally down this way so that it can't come back up the crack. So anyway, that's what he did. Just fold and bend, insert the tabs, and do the rivets. But it does make a nice little bend, and with the rivets in, again, it's tight and it works. So that is what they did. So this was quite a tedious process. They had to measure, bend, keep refitting this drain pipe up and down until they got everything just right, and then it was time to assemble all the pieces together and get it strapped to the building itself. Now it's riveted up at the top to the gutter, which can hold it in place, but it is quite heavy. It's a pretty long length of drain pipe. So the straps help secure it to the building and compress it there and take some weight off. when you remove the bottom support, everything has to hang in place and not move. With that done, they moved on to the next project, which was the chimney caps. So I told you earlier that there was a problem. So there were two issues really. The first was that they only brought 3 chimney caps and we have 4 chimneys. So somehow there was a miscommunication as to the number of caps. And then there was a problem with the dimensions. The first one they put on fit beautifully. And they brought the old one down. It wasn't in that bad a shape. But when they went to put the second one on, it didn't fit. So I think what happened is we have 3 chimneys that are almost identical looking from the ground, but obviously they are slightly different dimensions. I believe when they measured for the caps in the first place, they only measured one chimney and assumed that the other 2 were the same. That was a bad assumption. So now that second cap will have to be scrapped. 2 more will have to be made to the correct dimensions. So they went up to get some good dimensions on those 2. And while they had the boom over on this side, I remembered about that metal being detached on that triangular window, and I asked if they happened to have their rivet tool with them. They did, so they were able to swing over and quickly rivet that together and repair that triangular flashing. And then they turned their efforts to the large chimney over near the flat roof. Unfortunately, it did not fit either, and I believe what happened there is they looked at it and assumed it was square, measured one side and made the cap, but it's not square. It's actually slightly rectangular. I believe it's 39 inches by 35 inches. So that chimney cap will have to be scrapped and remade also. That one can be put on without the big lift, but unfortunately the other 2 are going to require the lift. So it may be some time before we see the chimney cap work completed, but it's not that big a deal. Everything is dry. We want to get them done, but it's not critical at this point. There's one last little bit of work to do on this part of the roof, and that's some more hurricane barrel damage that ripped off this composition roof from the side of that little faux roof around the addition. This is something that I didn't need the lift for, but while they're here and have their materials, it's a good time to get it done. So they worked on that for a while. They made the decision to cut back that composition roof and use some of the scrap copper that was left over from trimming the gutter drain pipe, since they had that available, to put a nice copper cap over this end. This will certainly be a more permanent fix than we had before. So with that, the roof work is wrapped up, other than those 2 chimney caps, or no, I'm sorry, 3 chimney caps that still need to be remade and installed. But as I said, that is not a big deal. That can wait for another day. It's great now to be watertight and have this behind us, but we will be finishing up our water issues in the new year, as we now have to do something with the water coming out of that downspout. It needs a place to go. So that will be one of the very first things we do in 2025. So with that, we wrap up a very full year of work here at the League-Kempner House in Galveston. Thank you guys so much for your support over the past 4 years. We are so excited about the future of this house. We are on a roll and hope you will subscribe, turn on your notifications, and join us in the new year as we continue on our efforts to save this incredible house. Thanks again, and Happy New Year.